It's the Behind the Shade show.
What do you think are some of the obstacles that people face when it comes to acknowledging their trauma and finding a way to resolve it?
Well, I mean, it's really interesting because people think that we can like analytically or logically put all that stuff in the past, right? The challenge is it's also connected to our physiology. So it's part of the stress response. It's part of how we react. And so all these micro and macro traumas that we have, big T, little t, people describe it differently, that we have when we're children. If we never were taught how to release an emotion, such as anger or sadness or whatever, it gets stuck in our nervous system. It gets stuck in our physiology. There's a book by the name of The Body Keeps the Score, and it's written by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. And he actually worked with veterans to do the tests on them to see what was going on. And during the fight or flight response, this energy, and it's just an energy, which has really blew me away when I found this out, because you can release an energy if you choose to. But most people are too afraid to because they think that it's going to be like some sort of an explosion or rage or something coming out, which isn't true. Or it's going to bring up something that you don't want to bring up, kind of like the underwear you were talking about. So basically what happens is you're putting you're like sequestering all these emotions, and all of the traumas are held in your subconscious, in our subconscious. So most of the time we don't even know why we're doing it. We just feel afraid to allow that to come up, which is why a lot of people won't grieve, because they think it's going to create this big explosion, right? And so what some of the things that I learned on my own and in working with other people is there's like this gap. There's a cycle that trauma goes through, and it has an opening at the end of it. And say, something terrible happened to you when you were 5 years old, right? And or as an example, this is a little my example is a little t trauma with my son. Like I had a feeling I abandoned him through the parental alienation direction, right? He told me no. It was the day that I dropped him off at daycare. He was 6 years old, and I had just gotten a job. I had to drop him off. I got down on my knees. I'm hugging him. I'm doing all this stuff that a mom would do, right? And I loved on him, and I did all these, and I'm like, I'm thinking he's fine. So 34 years later, I come to find out that that was the trauma. That was the abandonment, because after I did that, what he remembered was me turning around and walking off and leaving him with strangers, and he didn't know them. And so that's just an example of a little t. So that gets stuck. That gets stuck in that gap. So that's fear, and sadness, really. And so what happens is, as we go through life, every time something familiar happens to us, it doesn't have to be the exact same thing, but an anger, a fear, or sadness, whatever comes into our lives, it gets stuck. It gets blocked because he never got to release that, because I didn't know how to help him. I didn't even know that he went through it, right? So I didn't help him to learn how to release that. And so it gets stuck. And then the next thing that happens gets stuck, and it's all in the subconscious. The inner child, the inner child gets stuck in that subconscious, the energy of that child, and then it just stacks and stacks and stacks through the years. And the fear of that child is the thing that keeps us from taking that step, not who we are as adults, because as adults, technically, we don't have that fear. It's that child that shows up, and intentionally. And I like Jung's work. So it's like to individuate, you get to focus, because these things that come up in life are opportunities. I hope all this makes sense. I'm trying to talk it slow and okay. So but that's kind of the reason why we get stuck in the past, and we have this fear of just leaning in and doing the work. And I can tell you right now, the very first time that I realized that it's a lot faster than I'm sure a lot of you believe it to be, and the way I thought, I thought if I started, crying, I would rage, I would come out, I would be like screaming and doing all these things. And I had a moment of grief at one point, and I just allowed myself to cry by myself in the middle of a dark night of the soul. And before I went into the crying, I looked over at the clock, and then I allowed myself to go back into it, and I just bawled. I released it. I let it all come out. And then when I was done, I looked back at the clock, and it was 6 minutes later. That's it. It didn't last. It just, and when you're done, you're releasing all of this heaviness and weight off of your shoulders and from your body. And all that stuff can cause disease. It can cause depression and anxiety, all this thing. But if you're willing to take a look at the subconscious, like Jung talks about, then it helps to release that. It opens that up, and it also fills in that gap. So once that gap is filled in, you don't go back. That's just how things work. So healing is a present and forward motion. You don't go backwards. You might witness something again. I call them tests. So if something comes back up again, I'm like, really? Are you kidding me? Yeah. So, but it doesn't come up the same way because now I'm a different person. And now I've had experiences to understand how to help myself or calm myself or talk to my little girl or love on myself, which I could not do for the life of me when I first started going through all this stuff. So, long answer to a short question. The subconscious keeps us stuck in the past because 9 times out of 10 we don't know. And the little kid that was injured mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually also keeps us stuck there because they're scared. So I think that answers the question. I
And I
hope.
want to add to that that the healing journey for a lot of people can be scary,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're becoming someone that maybe they didn't ever think they could achieve because they're beaten down to the point in their past that they no longer believe it. I am not worthy of
Yeah.
love. I am
Yeah.
not worthy of happiness. I'm not worthy of people treating me well. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go out and search for the chaos. And it goes back to that saying that every saint has a past and every sinner has a future.
Mm-hmm.
You can overcome certain things because it wasn't your responsibility what happened to you necessarily, but it is your responsibility what you do after it has happened to you.
Yes. I
When
say
it
that.
comes to someone changing or leaving their past behind, why do you think some people find it difficult to embrace the new them?
Well, this kind of was going to answer something you also just said too. It's like when we're not used to something, when we grow up in an environment where love doesn't exist, you're not going to know what that looks like, right? So when you move into a space that's different than what you know, you get to go through a whole, uh, you just walk through this process to get used to it. Just anything different, anything, any changes in our lives. We something happens, we walk through the process, and then we move into the next phase of the energy of that process. And so for us to move into something that we're not used to, like for example, when I started working with Fort Freedom and I had asked for help, right? Um, I got help, and I was like, because before I got involved with them, I asked my family for help, and they were, oh, nope, nope. And so I stopped asking. And they thought there was something wrong with me. They're like, why can't you just, leave it in the past? Why can't you just move forward and not deal with it? Why, they don't, because they're not like, they, they don't have the desire to push through that like I do. And that's where it's being able to step into that understanding for yourself, and moving into the next level. I guess that's the best way, because a lot of people use that phrase, next level. um, but then being gentle with yourself while you're doing it, because if you don't know what it looks like, then you're not going to know what to do with it. Then ask for help. Ask for someone to sit with you. Ask for someone to, give you the love that that you feel like you've never experienced. It could have been there. You just didn't know because you feel not good enough, and you're not going to know it's there anyway. So part of it is an experience, and then the other part is your protective mechanism in yourself that keeps you from understanding what that is.